Well, landlords here in BC are about to bring the pain as soon as January 1st, 2024, adding to the already unbearably high rental prices across the province. And the reason that's going to happen might not be exactly what you think, because the province just unveiled how much landlords are allowed to increase rents by next year. And although you probably don't agree with me, if you yourself are a tenant, I'm going to suggest in this video that part of the problem with rental increases is the fact that they are limited to a certain amount or percentage each and every year. So if you're an investor or hope to be one day, please subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date here on my real estate market of Surrey and the Fraser Valley. And of course, if you learn anything here in today's video, all I ask in return is that you click the like button for the YouTube algorithm. And if you disagree with me, which I'm sure if you are a renter, you will, go ahead and leave me a comment below and then click the like button so other people who agree with you and not me can see this video and then also disagree with me down in the comments. And of course, if you are looking to get out of your investment property because the current rental increases can't help you cover the costs any longer because you're on a variable rate mortgage, or if you're looking to buy a rental property here in Surrey, well, you can book a call with me right now using the link in the description below at a time that works best for you. And now on to the video about how in some ways putting caps on rents, sure, can win you votes, but does it help to actually keep rents low? And in many cases, can it actually drive them up? Now, it may surprise you being a real estate agent myself. I'm not going to start this video off pretending that rent caps are the reason why prices of rents have skyrocketed so high. The real reason rents are now so high is that there are simply not enough homes for the amount of people coming into major metro areas like the GVRD or the GTA. Because of course, pre-2020, Canada had accepted about 260,000 new people per year. That number got bumped up to an approximate 450,000 just last year. And then we find out that there was an extra 250 or 300,000 students, refugees, and foreign workers that came in 2022. Oh, and then we found out that that number was actually 500 to 700,000 as of this last July. And then the famous Ben Tal, economist at CIBC, just let the cat out of the bag to find out that that number was off by, only about 1 million people. So before the pandy, we were building about 200,000 homes a year and adding 260,000 people or so. And now we're making just over 200,000 homes per year, and we let in 10x the amount, around 2 million people within the last 12 months or so. That is actual bodies into the country, regardless of status. So now with a foreign buyer ban in effect and high taxes in both BC and Ontario for foreigners anyway, many of these people are now forced into rentals because the last time I checked, living under a roof is still pretty popular. So simple supply and demand has caused rental prices to increase at what I think is a ridiculous rate. So I'm not saying that rent caps are causing the issue that I've just highlighted here, but they certainly have a potential to hurt the individual tenant on a singular basis. And let me tell you why I believe that to be true. I'm going to start off by confessing, as many of you already know, that I'm probably biased because I am a landlord. Currently, I have 2 rentals, and in the past, I have had others. Now, starting off as a landlord in 2012, owning that property through 2017, I can tell you that at that time, I had never increased my rent on a tenant. And well, the reasons were quite simple. First off, back then, rents were not going up at the pace that they are now. Neither were interest rates. I only had tenants change over once, so 2 tenants in the 5-year period that I owned that property. So when the second tenant came in, I charged basically the same rent at the same value that I did before. So you see, my interest rate was locked in for the 5 years that I owned that property. The tenant usually paid their rent on time, and at that time, mortgage interest rates hovered between 3.59 and 2.99%. So I personally had no need to increase those rents because, well, the bills were covered. And so I didn't want to scare away my tenants with higher rents because they were relatively good tenants. I mean, not perfect, but relatively good. But in March of 2022, I got two new sets of tenants, one in a basement suite that I put into my home and another in a 2-bedroom investment property I freshly purchased nearby. And in those tenants' first year, I continued my trend of not increasing rents. So no, not all landlords are greedy and trying to suck every penny possible out of their tenants, contrary to popular belief. But when interest rates started to rise right along with market rents, homeowners and investors' costs also increased at the same time. And that is where the issue actually starts. You see, if there was no rental increase limits, then I, as the landlord, would feel just fine keeping my rent low enough just to cover my costs and help pay down the mortgage. That, after all, is my personal investment strategy. Personally, I don't look for cash flow. Rather, I just want someone else to be able to pay down my investment for me and ideally break even. Again, someone else paying down the asset while hopefully over time it grows in value. But now that I know the next time my condo renews after the current 5-year fixed rate expires, well, the interest rate and therefore the payments are going to increase substantially. I estimate that those new costs, along with increases of, say, the strata fee, will total an extra $450 to $500 per month. And if I'm just breaking even today, well, an extra $6,000 a year wouldn't be a great pill for me to swallow. So as a result, I, like most landlords, are now forced to increase rents every single year by the minimum amounts that we are allowed to do here in the province, hence causing rental prices to go up. But let me explain a little bit further. You see, if I could increase the rent by whenever I needed to, by how much I need to, then in 3 more years from now, I could increase the rent the $400 to $500 per month to cover my costs. At that time, the tenant wouldn't like it, but I wouldn't have to raise rents on them now. But until those costs went up, if I wanted to keep my tenants, which I do, then I would not need to raise those rents until that time comes. But right now, given that I know my costs will almost certainly increase much higher by the 2026 renewal of my mortgage, well, to recover those costs, I need to start increasing my rents now, as I did for the first time ever for any of my tenants in 2023. When finally, after ridiculous rental freezes, I was allowed to increase those rents by 2%. And now the BC government has come out just this last week and said that rents can be increased this year by as much as 3.5%. And while since I know that those future costs are coming when I have to renew, I have no choice but to serve my tenants with rental increases this fall for the new year. And sure, I understand. You don't have any sympathy for me if you yourself are a tenant. I get that. But the reality is, as the rates continue to go up, many landlords are forced to sell their units because they can no longer afford to cover the shortfall of those monthly bills. Because yes, here in my market, most of the rentals are subsidized by landlords paying extra into the pot each month. And most often, condos like the one I own will be sold to first-time buyers who are looking to move in, which would force the current tenant to move when the unit is sold. And forcing them to move means their next rental won't be at those old rental rates that they previously had, or even as low as maybe the one like I mentioned where my break-even point is, but rather they're going to pay today's even higher rental market rates. But there could be a fix if you as the tenant find yourself in the situation that your landlord is being forced to sell. And that is, although they cannot force it upon you and make you agree, if you did choose to agree, you could negotiate a new higher rent that is maybe a little bit less than current market rent, but enough for your landlord to keep the place and not be forced to sell it out from under you to a new owner-occupier. But if you are a landlord out there, listen up, because there is stuff you need to know as well. Because if you are keeping your tenants' rent low because they're good tenants and it's not hurting you at the moment to accept those lower rents? Well, because you can't increase their rents when the time is necessary to current market rates, you are actually devaluing your own property the longer the tenancy goes on. I have had many investor clients over the years who never increased their rents, as I never needed to with my previous investments either. But then when it came time to sell, since they could not increase the rents at that time, no other investors in the marketplace were interested in purchasing their property because the monthly rents were simply too low. Again, likely causing the sale of this unit to go to an end user or first-time buyer, forcing the tenant to move. And worse off for them, the owner, causing them to sell for dramatically less so the deal can make sense to another investor. Yeah, it's true. Not raising rents on your investment properties will, over time, devalue them. And for everyone that might be up in arms about the crazy amount that the 3.5% increase is this year, I want you to understand that when the rental caps were originally brought in, they were at that time inflation plus 2%. So if you're a renter since about 2020 and haven't been forced to find new accommodations at today's market rents, well, you should be thanking your lucky stars that you have basically had a rental increase vacation for the past 3 years. And you should also be thanking your lucky stars that in February of this year, the BC government said that we would be at inflation in 2023 for those rental increase limits. And just last week, as I mentioned, they reneged on that, stating that the 5.6% inflation rate would be too high and that they are settling this year at 3.5. And for some strange reason, if you have made it this far into the video and you tend to agree with my wildly unpopular opinions, please make sure to subscribe to the channel because in the future, this video is going to explain to you why renting is a terrible idea in the first place. And of course, if you need help in my market finding your first place, or maybe you want to become an investor, well, you can book a call with me right now using the link in the description below. Thank you for watching, subscribing, clicking the like button, and we'll see you in a couple of days.